The first nuclear test, which occurred on July 16th of 1945, marked the beginning of the atomic age, which saw more than 2,000 explosions by at least 8 countries. The test results showed how much damage a nuke could really cause. The result deposes that nuclear weapons present the largest number of potential means by which mankind may destroy itself or other objects. Therefore, it's important to consider the immense harm they produce. Furthermore, it is impossible to fathom the horror that would ensue if a contemporary nuclear weapon were to be accidentally detonated within a city. The Pacific atolls, sections of Kazakhstan, Algeria, Nevada, and the South Atlantic were among the top nuclear test locations that have been used globally to carry out all nuclear weapon tests that we know about today. But it's unlikely that many of us have ever even considered the possibility of what would happen if we nuked the moon to pieces. Is there a possibility that this could really happen? If the chances are there, has it been tried before? Questions like these are bound to be running through your mind at this very moment, and in this video we will provide the answers to all of those questions and more. To be totally fair, the act of blowing up the moon could actually be considered as a senseless act of violence by many environmental activists, as this would do nothing more than ruin the earth and the people who live on it. Sadly, not everyone in the 1950s held that viewpoint. You might be surprised to learn that from the late 1940s through the early 1990s, American academics investigated ways to militarize the moon. They considered testing devices against the celestial object, but they also intended to erect military installations there. Studies that were well documented were conducted with the declared goal of figuring out what the Earth's satellite might give a nuclear-armed nation. Surprisingly, both the Soviet Union and the United States conducted a study on the feasibility of nuking the moon. Why? To shoot it down. So, just for fun, let's say we threw every nuclear bomb we had of all the countries on Earth and sent them at the moon. The explosion would be extremely large and very visible despite the distance between the Earth and its lunar partner. Why? Because there is no atmosphere on the moon to provide protection from a detonation. NASA claims that when a nuclear bomb is detonated near to the surface of the Earth, the air's density is sufficient to attenuate radiation, specifically neutrons and gamma rays, to the point that their effects are often less significant than those of explosion and thermal radiation. Expect a massive, unrestrained eruption in a scenario that is unlike anything that has ever occurred on Earth. This theory is supported by NASA records that describe the detonation of a nuclear weapon in space. Higher frequency radiation would be emitted by the weapon, and only physical distance might lessen its effects. The range of meaningful doses will be several times higher than is the case at sea level, according to NASA. Within a few kilometers of the explosion, any astronauts able to view the event would perish instantly. Additionally, people who are observing the explosion from space would also be in danger. In essence, there would be no safe viewing distance for the lunar nuclear catastrophe, since getting so near would expose everyone to lethal radiation levels and incoming debris. Not to mention blinding light, which can cause severe eye damage and temporary total blindness. Additionally, all satellite installations would be completely severed and communication worldwide crippled. I know this is getting scary now, but that's not the height of it. Because the moon is much smaller than the Earth, the explosion would cause an earthquake-like impact of a 7 or higher on the Richter scale. And the problems definitely don't stop there, however. Due to the moon's proximity to the Earth, if it were to be nuked, large pieces of the moon would fall into the atmosphere of the Earth extremely quickly, destroying high-digit populations around the world. This might destroy human civilization outright, or perhaps kill billions of people. The level of damage would be utterly catastrophic, and humanity's chances of survival would be slim at best. In addition, because the moon has considerably less gravity than the Earth, it may be possible that the explosion would release a shotgun-like burst of lunar debris. This would impact the Earth and be flung into space, producing micrometeor showers seen in the night sky. Satellites and space stations would likewise be at risk from those same micrometers. And despite the damage back to Earth, massive nuclear weapons would push the moon away from the Earth with enough force to leave destruction in their wake. This will also result in a lack of lunar effects, which will have a significant impact on the tides. All marine life and aquatic habitats would perish as a result, and if that weren't bad enough, you'd have to say goodbye to all of the seasons as you know them. A scary thought for sure, but did you know that during the height of the Cold War in the late 1950s, the US Air Force considered exploding a nuclear weapon on the moon? I know you're wondering, what were they thinking? The Air Force Nuclear Weapons Center produced a 190-page unclassified study in June of 1959. The Project A119 study examined the effects of a nuclear explosion on the moon in the real world. It also discussed how the military could monitor seismic activity and other lunar surface phenomena after the explosion. It also included assumptions regarding the effects of a detonation, such as how long the alien body would be exposed to radioactive fallout. It's crucial to keep in mind that the nuclear bomb that was originally intended to explode on the moon ended up being significantly smaller. The Air Force considered dropping a W-25 bomb with a 1.7 kiloton yield, but after giving the potential consequences some deliberation, they decided against it. Project A119's claimed goal, according to the Air Force papers, was to drop a nuclear weapon on the moon. Why? They wanted to resolve queries regarding the enigmas of planetary astronomy and astrology. Despite the official claim that the objective of the moon's destruction was purely scientific, researchers actually had a darker agenda. They wanted to send a message to the Soviet Union in response to October 4th of 1957, the official start of the Soviet satellite Sputnik. For the United States to have a rethink about their decision, then you can imagine how bad the effect would be. Scientists were concerned that the radiation from the nuclear detonation might prohibit the military from constructing bases on the moon in the future. Leaders were also concerned about the massive public fallout that would occur from the event. Possible effects on the Earth's health were also a source of worry. And if you have watched this video up to this point, leave a comment below about your thoughts on this topic. And if you're new here, make sure to subscribe. But as we draw to a close and the moon blown to pieces, what if you managed to survive this incident? You would have one of the most delightful views of the beautiful night sky, despite the burning landscape and constant earthquakes and eruptions. Despite all the terror and gloom that would occur if we nuked the moon to pieces, you now have an idea of what it would look like or feel like if we nuked the moon. The good news for both us and the Earth is that due to two agreements, the 1967 Outer Space Treaty and the 1963 Partial Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, it is now forbidden to use nuclear weapons on the moon. Nowadays, scientists and astronomers have looked to the moon with pure curiosity rather than a destructive thought in mind. It would be purely unethical to put an end to such a wonder before learning about it. With this knowledge in mind, you'll never have to worry about the moon being blown up again. At least not today.